This occurs after Hammer has brought Lee home from the night of drinking that she has with Orenthar, and he has fallen asleep with her in her bed. This evening, though, she, like most other nights, is having a nightmare. She is dreaming of a failure from her past, specifically that of her mother's life, and when she was executed for her people. And as she dreams of this, she begins to jerk slightly in Hammer's arms. She begins to mutter to herself and cry out a bit in fear.
And Hammer will, from his background, he tends to be a bit of a light sleeper. So the feeling of someone kind of like moving around in his arms or kind of like crying pretty close to his ear actually would wake him. I think that he would slowly start to rub her back and stroke her hair and very gently whisper to her to try and wake her.
When he does that, she doesn't immediately respond. She jerks a little more aggressively in his arms as if trying to push away from him, and she starts to mutter a bit louder, and you'll hear her say words like no, no, and stop.
Okay, and he will speak a little bit more loudly, and he will say, "Princess, wake up."
Lee's eyes will fly open, and she doesn't immediately recognize where she is, and she's still kind of in that state where she is still living her nightmare. And as she opens her eyes and gasps for air, she says to Hammer, I didn't mean to. I tried to stop them. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please, please just let her go. Don't let her, don't let her die. She means everything to me.
"Princess," and he'll stroke her hair more. "I'm here, okay? I'm right here."
What? Where? Connell?
"Yes, Princess. We're in Tiriana."
But what about my mom? I tried to save her and I couldn't. They
It
hurt
was a
her.
dream, Princess.
It wasn't a dream. It wasn't. It was real. It happened. I couldn't stop. I tried. Please believe me when I say I tried.
I know you did. I know.
She begins to cry, and she buries her face against his chest, and she just openly weeps.
And he will just very slowly slide his hand up and down her back, holding her tight in his arms, just trying to be as comforting as possible to her.
After a few moments, she looks up at him and says, I'm so sorry. I sometimes have nightmares, and I didn't mean for you to witness.
I know. It's okay. It's okay.
She'll look away because right now she's horribly embarrassed to have been caught in this very vulnerable position that she wishes for no one to ever see her in. And the only person to date who had fully experienced her with her night terrors and her nightmares would have been Tall. And so as she's laying there, she tries to untangle their limbs because she's trying to roll away now because she is... Yeah, no,
Yeah,
you're
no.
not... Okay.
He's not gonna let
She
her.
will feel him resist, and then she'll look up at him slightly frustrated and say, I just need to step away for a bit maybe, and maybe you can go back to your room. Like I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me. And even as she says this, like you can hear the tremor in her voice, and there are tears running down her face.
He won't say anything. He's just going to very, very softly run a finger across her cheek to wipe away her tears. And if she tries to move away from him, he's just going to hug her tighter.
When she realizes that he is not going to give in to releasing her, she resigns herself to this fate and moves closer to him then. After a few moments, she says, I feel so guilty about what happened to my mother. I know that I've never really told you in full what happened, but her execution was the result of my failure to perform my duty as the princess of our kingdom. I dream of this most nights, and I have found that the dreams have only worsened over time.
I think that you probably feel more guilt now that you have greater understanding of what transpired.
He'll feel her face move against his neck as though nodding, and she says, I ran from my home I hid for a long time. I was a coward for it. Like so many people that we travel with now think me some, brave warrior when truth is I ran.
Princess,
Yes, Connell?
how old were you?
15.
You were just a child.
I was a child who was raised with everything I was taught for this one moment where I would bind two kingdoms together for the security and safety and prosperity of the continent, and I failed.
I'm by no means a master of diplomacy or politics, Princess, but it feels like if a failure came from the refusal of one person to engage in an activity that they were clearly being forced into, it doesn't seem like it was a very good or well thought out diplomatic solution at all.
Lee goes still for a few moments and she says, I had never thought about it like that. I suppose it was just something I had always accepted, that nobility marry to other nobility, and as a consequence we align ourselves. And that was something that's always existed, and so I agreed with it.
And I don't think that that's necessarily a wrong way to bind houses, to bind people in seeking common cause or seeking a way for ensuring stability and order and law and justice. But if that's all there is, then clearly the people who are supposed to be doing a job of maintaining peace, the job of maintaining order and security, if that's their only plan, then they've failed.
Leo's quiet for a few moments, and she says, I don't know if it was more beyond that, to be honest. I performed or tried to perform the duty that had been set before me. I didn't, and the last thing I remember as a result of that was the result of it was the execution of my mother, and I watched it, Connell. I saw when the axe fell, and I saw when it cut through her, and I saw this great inspiring woman fall, and she did because of my failure. And I wished I could swap places with her. I wish I could save her. I wish I could do so many things, but I can't do anything now, and I can do even less because I've left and I haven't gone back.
What good would you have done staying?
I don't know.
Because it sounds as though you just would have died.
Maybe I could have, and maybe she could have lived.
Princess, I have absolute faith in you, and I don't doubt that you can do whatever you put your mind to. But I think that as a child, if you tried to go against the forces that clearly overwhelmed your mother, I don't think that you would have prevailed. I think that now there's opportunity. Now that you've reached maturity, now that you've grown as a person, now that you've grown as a warrior. But I think that you needed the experiences that you've had since then in order to reach that point. Not everyone can do what I did, and I understand that what I precipitated was not something that was just my actions alone. It was a culmination of opportunities, of luck, of making an agreement with a god. And I think that it needed every one of those factors in order to be successful. Any one of those things on their own would not have been enough. Circumstances have to be right, and circumstances weren't right then. They could be right now, but they weren't then. And I think that putting undue and harmful pressure on yourself by thinking about what you could have done as a child to fix these things, you can't know. And you can fret about what could have been forever, or you can think about what you can do now.
I want her back. I want her back so badly. I just want her to
I know, Princess.
be alive again so I can tell her I'm sorry. And I love her, and I didn't get to.
He will very gently take her face in his hands and look her in the eyes, and he'll say, Princess, if she had even a tenth of the love that you have for yours, for Dwayne, and for Bibiv, then I know that she would have done it again and again and again for eternity, if it meant that she knew that you would live and be safe. I think that the woman who raised you very likely loved you with all the unconditionality that comes with the love that you feel for Dwayne and for Bebeth. And I think that she would be proud of who you are right now. And I think that she would be happy that you lived to get to where you are right now.
She rests her forehead against his, and she says, I hear everything you're saying. I just think it'll take me a long time to fully let that sink in, if that makes sense.
Nothing's ever easy.
And she'll close her eyes, and she'll say, please don't leave me tonight.
I already promised you I wouldn't.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And she's getting sleepy now, and she says, I don't remember, but thank you.
He will kiss her forehead and just hug her. And he'll say, I'm not going to leave you, I promise.
And after a few minutes, she falls back asleep.